to this meeting of the Community and Culture Committee. We have apologies from Councillors Elder, Steadman and Hall. I'll move that the committee accept the apologies. Seconded, Councillor Lofiso. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Confirmation of the agenda. I'll move that the committee confirm the agenda with the standard alterations, re-standing order 2.1 favouring option C. Seconded, Councillor Lofiso. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Declarations of interest. Any amendments to be made to the interests register and attendant management plan? If not, I'll move that the committee note the register and confirms the management plan as per the agenda. Seconded, Councillor Lofiso. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. If you'll indulge me, I'll move that the committee confirm the minutes of the grants subcommittee meetings 5th of July 2017, 8th of August 2017, 20th of November 2017, 21st of May 2018, 27th of June 2018 and the 4th of July 2018. Seconded, Councillor Lofiso. Any discussion? All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. And further, I'll move that the committee note the minutes of the Toitu Otago Settlers Museum Board meetings held 21 February, 18 April, 23rd May and 27 June of this year. Seconded, Councillor Wilson. Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Part A reports. The Otago Museum report to contributing local authorities. Welcome back, Dr. Griffin. Your usual comments around the delay in this report making it to this table, notwithstanding, anything else you want to add at this point?
Just kia ora. It's great to be presenting today. Subsequent to this report, the museum has been shortlisted for a New Zealand Tourism Award. We've been shortlisted for the Best Visitor Experience for our new Tahura Science Centre. We find out in September whether we've won that, but I need to indulge your help, or I need your help, because closing on Friday, the Visitors' Choice Awards for the same Tourism Industry Awards are now up and being voted for. So, if I may, if you do anything today, please vote for the Otago Museum for the Best or the People's Choice Award in the Tourism Industry Awards. We're up against some real competition, real journeys. The Kaikoura whale watching folks are out there as well. So if I could ask you to kind of vote for us, we'd be really, really appreciative. Other than that, I'm very happy to answer any questions on the report as submitted to the council.
Almost as important as the museum staff dance off. Thank you. Questions? Doctor?
Yeah, yes, oh. If you go to that web address, which I won't read out because it's enormous, you can vote. And there's a chance of winning 2 seats on an Air New Zealand plane as well for a holiday of your choice. So it could be worthwhile. Yeah, so. It's a place of your choice or a mystery tour.
And is it return? Yeah.
And it is a return, yes. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But I'm very happy to answer. It's obviously a very extensive report, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thanks, Ian. Any questions for Dr. Griffin? Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Chair. Just a small detail, Dr. Griffin, on page 88. It talks about the controls to reduce the number of butterfly escapes and mitigate the effects of any that do. How many butterflies escape from the facility currently?
Normally, over the course of a year, less than 10. But it is a big deal, any butterfly escape. Yes. And by escape, it's not like they're getting out of the building. For us, an escape is actually out of the containment zone, which means literally outside of the double doors into the butterfly house. And that's the majority of butterflies that do escape. And this year it's been about 3 or 4 so far. Normally it's as a result of someone having a butterfly under one of their coats or in a bag or something. So we do try and mitigate that as best we can, and we try, as anybody who's visited the Butterfly House knows, there's always a member of staff inside, and we do literally pat you down before you leave. But sometimes these critters are pretty crafty, and they do try and escape. So that's one of the reasons that we have to, there's a very stringent reporting regime. If any of the butterflies are found outside the containment, we have to report on them. And we work to minimise the number of escapes. But certainly the butterflies are not flapping around all over Dunedin. It's very much less than that.
Yes, that was a little ambiguous. And so that would be a significant thing if that did happen, if a butterfly did escape, presumably. Does that affect your accreditation in terms of the numbers that...
Well, the numbers don't really, as long as when we are accredited, and as you saw, we were re-accredited for another year or so, the numbers that do get out of the containment are something that we would discuss. But actually, in terms of the actual threat to the environment of these butterflies, if they do escape, remembering that they're from a tropical environment, and Dunedin is very rarely a tropical environment, they wouldn't live for very long. But there is a risk, we can't deny that, and that's why we have the controls, but the risk is relatively small.
Thank you for explaining that.
On page 75, it's good to see that you've sold more than 1,600 annual passes. Can you let us know over what period those passes have been bought? How long have they been?
Yes, we've sold, it's actually, I checked before coming out today, it's about 1,750 now, and that's since the Tuhura opened, which was the 15th of December last year, so that's just over 8 months.
That's extraordinary. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Further questions? No? Someone like to move the report be noted? Moved, Councillor Wilson. Seconded, Councillor Staines. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor? Any discussion? Your Worship.
Just to note that we're grateful and impressed by the continued contribution that the museum is making to our city.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Would you like to respond, Councillor Wilson? In that case, I'll put it. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Thank you, Ian. Item 11, Cosy Homes Charitable Trust Otago funding update. Ms Gunn and Ms Pinfold. Thank you. Any opening remarks you'd like to make?
No, I'm happy for you to ask me questions.
And there's clearly overlap to a degree between this and the following report. So it's a bit tricky to manage, but I'm sure we'll get there. Questions for this paper. This is for the operational funding of the trust being allocated by rates revenue by way of the community development team. Councillor Lord.
So I just wanted to check, this is just at a general rates, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
So that is the only cost that the whole Cosy Homes project has to the general ratepayer, is that right?
We are funded a grant through rates of 62,800 it is this year. That goes, and that's directly to home insulation. So there is this $20,000 through the rates. 25, sorry, and then
62.
we're asking about 20 through Consumer Electricity Fund shortly. So yes, for operational costs, yes.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
Further questions? I have one, and it does relate to both this and the subsequent paper, and it's around really delegations, I suppose, and why this is coming to committee for approval rather than just being spent out of staff's available budgets. And this is only, and because the recommendation on the order paper for this is that it be approved for 1 year, and the subsequent report around the Consumer Electricity Fund asks for the approval for ongoing annual funding.
Yes.
So what's the I'm just asking, trying to find out what the difference is and whether it needs to come here in the first instance.
I mean, the reason it's here this time is because after that was funded in 2016, we were requested to provide an update before council decided whether it would continue to fund it. So that's the only reason it's brought back, really. And in relation to the consumer electricity one, we were looking for ongoing because we wanted to know whether you really wanted us to keep coming back for that.
Staff wouldn't be uncomfortable if the committee resolved to approve ongoing funding for this.
No, staff would be comfortable.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? Anyone want to move? I'm happy to move what? For this one financial year. Okay. Is there a second? Is there a second? Seconded, Councillor Van der Vis. Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Lord?
I just thought that it was an acceptable amount to donate, and I was happy to support it. Yep. And the alternative was not support it, which I didn't not support.
Further speakers?
No right reply.
No, but my concern isn't so much that we approve, speaking to this, that we approve the allocation of money, but I do question whether it's something that needs to come back to this committee on an annual basis. I can't imagine a time when we're not going to support delivery against one of our key social wellbeing and strategic outcomes. So I'm inclined to, and I don't want to vote against this motion, but I'd prefer to support a motion that allocated this funding on an ongoing basis. So if you'd like to move an amendment? Okay. So we're voting on the amendment to the motion, which would be to ensure allocate the funding on an ongoing basis. All those in favour? Oh, do people want to speak to the amendment? Sorry. No, I don't think it's a procedural motion. Oh, yeah. Do you want to speak to your amendment, Councillor Benson? No. Councillor O'Malley?
When would it get reviewed if it was ongoing? Like, would it ever get reviewed at that point? That's the only question.
In practice, it would be reviewed at every annual plan or long-term plan.
Okay,
yeah.
as long as, therefore, that's fine.
Yeah. Further speakers to the amendment? No? I'll put it. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That's agreed. And further speakers to what is now the substantive motion? No? Your right of reply, Councillor Lord? I'll put it. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Thank you. Item 12. You can come back now, Your Worship. Oh no, sorry. Yeah, the aforementioned overlap. The Consumer Electricity Fund, anything that you would like to preface this discussion with?
I actually would like to preface this one. Hopefully we've managed to make something that seemed quite complicated fairly straightforward, but we are essentially asking to continue providing some funding out of this fund for cosy homes, for home insulation, and also to, at this moment, change the procedure to allow budget advice services who administer this on behalf of the council to be able to allow people to use it twice in every 5-year period. Currently it's once, unless it's very exceptional and they have to come through to us. We are mindful that the central government has just introduced the winter energy payment, and so there may be queries around, is this money needed? That was introduced on 1 July this year, so we do not, at this point in time, have an idea of the impact of that fund on the funding that we are providing families. So the winter energy payment is provided to beneficiaries, and 75% of the users of this fund are beneficiaries. because we couldn't really work through what this might look like over a period of time, we have still asked for the same amount of money to be provided through the Consumer Electricity Fund to budget advisory services and i.e. to whānau in our community.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Wiley.
Thank you, Joy. Can you walk me through the process of how people apply to this fund?
Yep. So people who apply to this, they don't actually apply to us directly. They have to be working with one of the budget advisory services in the city, and they administer the fund on our behalf. So they are working with whānau to look at how they can be more financially resilient over a number of things, and basically will make a decision that yes, based on what this person has going on, they need some assistance with electricity costs. They keep a record of that at their end so that they know who's using the fund over the period of time. We meet with them as staff about every quarter with the agencies involved to get an idea of trend from them and what's happening. And they report back numbers to us, but no personal information.
I'm just trying to recall, a friend of mine called me around to his house to try and sign a document, and when I read a document around, it was funding, and I'm trying to work out whether it's the same fund as this, or do we have another that retirees can apply for?
So that's run by, yes, that's run by Internal Affairs.
Okay.
That wouldn't have been for electricity costs though. Was it for a rates rebate?
Yeah, okay, rates
Yep.
rebate. Okay, different issue.
Yeah,
Okay.
different one.
Okay, I guess the question where I'm heading is there any, are the organisations able to sign this off versus the rates rebate? You have to have certain designated people to sign off. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there's official designation,
Yep.
designated people in the rates rebate,
Yep.
and this doesn't need that sort of process?
Well, because the budget advisory services are, they're contracted by the government to provide these services. They're seen by us as trusted. We have a contract with them for the delivery of the administration.
So it's a simpler process is what I'm getting at.
It is a simpler process for the end user.
Cool.
Absolutely.
No, that's what I was hoping to hear. Okay, perfect. Thanks.
Councillor Gary.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just parking the winter energy payment for a moment, just not taking that into account. What is your sense of the need for that possibility of that second payment? Is it because there's been a bit of demand around that possibility?
The agencies report that sometimes they do see that, and we know that often people who are in poverty will have, maybe on a good train for a while, then a family circumstance, something will come out of nowhere, and suddenly they've got a whole range of challenges once again. So it was to not make that difficult.
And are we talking elderly people in terms of the majority of people who apply for this, or young families? So do you have a sense of that at all?
Just a range, really. Right. I didn't ask for age-related information from the budget services, just that the majority of people are on benefits of some kind.
And do you get a sense that it's well known? Obviously, if they're working with other agencies, they're promoting it. So do you get a sense that it's well promoted?
I think, the agencies don't sort of promote it as such because they are working with people. Sure. And so they want,
as a tool.
This is about, yes, it's a tool about being more financially resilient.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Councillor O'Malley.
Just an inflation question. I'm looking at this, that the $200,000 figure was allocated way back in 98-99 annual plan. So it looks like, and then you've moved from Waipori Fund to going to rates in terms of where the source comes from, but it doesn't look like there's been any adjustment for inflation since this was first put up. It'd be interesting to know what that number would be if we adjusted for inflation, and how far out we are from what the vision of the council back in 98 was in terms of supporting people with income needs. I wonder, would you be able to supply us with what someone, maybe Treasury, be able to supply us what the inflation adjustment of that number would be?
We certainly can do that, but just not on the spot.
No, that's why I said Treasury rather than you.
Outrageous. Thank you. Just a question from me for clarity. The winter energy payment is paid, there is no application process, it's paid directly to the client, to use MSD's parlance.
Yes, yep, sorry. Was that the question?
Yeah.
I leapt ahead. Yes, it is. So it's paid direct into people's accounts between 1 July and the 30th of September this year. And next year it will be available for people from 1 May until 30th of October.
I thought it unkind to single out colleagues for expert advice. So were we to not provide this mechanism, aside from the 25% of people who are accessing it who aren't MSD clients, no one would, for the other 75% they would be better off over even if not the first year, certainly the second, in the sense that they're getting the winter energy payment paid directly to them annually rather than applying to this a maximum now of potentially twice every 5 years.
If we didn't, they wouldn't be worse off if we didn't have this. I think it would be interesting for us to monitor this over the next year or so in terms of use and how much it's used by beneficiaries. I mean, we do have a percentage of waged poor within our city as well, and possibly could be more utilised by that group who will not be eligible for the winter energy payment.
Because I have a question about the ECA criteria, or their updated criteria, that you need to be a homeowner and living in a deprivation 9 or 10 area, the areas where we have particularly low rates of home ownership, which seems like an odd approach. But do you have can staff make any comment on where those, what the thinking behind those criteria are? Do you know?
I can't provide the thinking that ECA put into that. I would say that, I mean, obviously, up to now, for quite a lengthy period of time, ECA have focused their subsidies for landlords, and I think we would say in our city, the uptake from landlords has been reasonably poor. So I think what they have tried to do is focus on a group that actually would take some real interest in getting their home insulated.
Yeah, okay.
But in terms of this fund overall, if we found that with the winter energy payment over the next couple of years, it was not needed for that purpose, potentially down the track, if the council saw that it could do that, some further funding into insulating homes, I believe would be a good thing for us to look at. Right. But it would be useful to monitor the need over the next couple of years.
Right. So you would anticipate a report coming to, say, the next long-term plan, looking at options around how to best invest this money in achieving these outcomes?
I think by that time we would have a much clearer idea, because the winter energy payment's new, about its impact here, and we'd have a much clearer idea about who in our community is able to take up the subsidies offered and who is not, and what are the challenges around that. So yes, we could do that.
Yeah. Thank you. Further questions? Councillor Lord.
Yeah, I was just wondering, well, you've probably answered it in that question, but one of the things I've had is, I know, for example, as a landlord, if you want to make a home fully compliant and you get an assessment done, you can get that done, and it might cost $6,000 or $7,000. But if you do have a student or someone with a community services card, you can actually get those services completely reduced to just a couple of $1,000. So the government pick up the tab for that. Mm-hmm. So I'm just interested in your comment that landlords don't seem to take that up, because I would have thought that would be if I can get a house done for 70% cheaper, it's just an absolute no-brainer. It's there forever. I don't know why people wouldn't accept that.
that is an ongoing question we ask ourselves. No, in all seriousness, the information that we've had from the Cosy Homes Trust, who we work with quite closely around this, is that their coordinator has been out talking with landlords across the city and still hasn't managed to get traction with a number of our landlords to get homes insulated. Anecdotally, looking at it, we think that less than half the homes in the city are actually insulated to the appropriate standard. So, like you, Councillor, I'm a little confounded as to why.
Further questions? Anyone would like to move anything? Those are the recommendations per the order paper. Do we have a mover? Move Councillor Staines, sorry. A seconder? Seconding Councillor Gary? Would you like to speak to it, Councillor Staines? Any speakers? No? I'm unfortunately unable to offer you the right of reply. I'll put it in that case. All those in favour? Aye. Those against? That's agreed. Thank you. Item 13, Community and Culture Non-Financial Activity Report for the quarter ended 30 June 2018. Welcome, Mr. Dixon. Ms. Pinfold, Ms. Gunn, any opening remarks before we take questions?
Just a couple. It's obviously a joint report, although it's not. So apologies for that. And just a couple of minor corrections. We refer in the report to the Youth Committee. That should be the Youth Council. And there's a further correction in the bullet point in paragraph 1. It refers to the community hui in South Dunedin in May. It was actually referring to the stakeholder drop-in, which was held in July to discuss the progress 1 year on since the flood. So apologies for those minor corrections. Hope it doesn't detract from all the positive news that there is in the report.
Thank you. Any questions? Councillor Gary?
Thank you. Page 119, paragraph 19. I was just wanted clarification because I couldn't recall. This June was the largest month since DCC took over operating the garden. When did we take over operating the garden? What year?
I apologise. I'll have to get back to you on
That's
that.
right,
I wasn't
that's
here
fine.
at the time.
Yeah,
Was
no,
it about three? I'm not sure. I'd have to get back to you on
That's
that.
fine.
One.
Just
Sorry,
somebody could get back to me on that. And the other was a question. I was delighted to see the app around Te Reo Māori and tikanga Māori that's been developed, and I know at the end of the year, so you're thinking before Christmas that would be ready?
That's the current plan.
Great.
Yes.
And how would you see that being used? For translation purposes, or?
It offers a number of features, so it helps with translation of place names. Another of the features it has is helps develop a personalised mihi. So you put in your own the details relevant to yourself, and then it will produce a mihi back for you. Helps with protocols for visiting marae. So there are a whole range of features that it'll provide, and it'll be not targeted. What's the word? Personalised to Dunedin. So there'll be local elements on it as well.
Fabulous. Thank you very much indeed.
Councillor Wilson.
Well, on that, will it actually set up our computers to have macrons that are appropriate as well?
Can't promise that, but we will. We'll work on that through other avenues.
Thank you. Further questions? I just have one particular one. It's around the Chinese garden as well, and Councillor Gary raised it where it says this June was the largest month since DCC took over operating the garden, which I guess means when Toitu started operating the garden, but largest month in what sense? Certainly not in terms of visitation, because it's not even the largest month in this year, but
I think it's the largest June-on-June figure.
Ah, got it.
In terms of
Perfect,
visitor
thank you.
figures.
Anything further? Someone like to move that we note the report? Moved Councillor Benson-Pope, seconded Councillor O'Malley. Any discussion? There being none, sorry, would you like to speak to your motion? No. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Thank you, team. Item 14 is items for consideration by the Chair. Anything that people want to flag at this juncture? No? In that case, I will move, per the order paper, that the committee move into a non-public session. Seconded Councillor Lawfisel. All those in favour? Those against? That's agreed. Thank you.